Hello there and welcome to today's XJ40 related video. Now, I started out today wanting to actually put my fan shroud back on, but as it turns out that's a little bit more involved than I first thought. I'll discuss that in a bit. What I ended up doing was actually removing the radiator top mount, so this panel which we're focused in on at the moment, and just giving that a bit of a clean up. Now the panel itself is held in with four 10mm bolts, and those bolts are located in some rubber locating things, rubber grommets, I suppose is the correct word, and those grommets are sleeved with a little metal inner sleeve, and then you've got a washer on top. So what I'm doing here is I'm just removing all four of these. It doesn't take too long, and literally that will allow you to just pull up the panel and take the panel away from the car. Now located in the panel are a couple of little posts which you can see in the middle, in between those two grommets. There's like a raised bit in the middle of the panel, near the front of the panel. That is one of the locating pins for the radiator, and the radiator is actually located by a pair of foam cushion type things. And obviously because those little cushiony type things are now 30 years old, they literally disintegrated when I removed the panel. So what I did was I cut around about 1.5 centimetres of hose pipe, so I had to get 2 of those. Then I cut another 1.5 centimetres of hose pipe, cut that bit of hose pipe in half, and then wrapped that around the first piece of hose pipe. And on top of the radiator you do actually have a couple of little holes where you can sort of basically push in the foam, or in this case the hose pipe, and that basically allowed the radiator to sit back in place and locate properly. So I've now removed the panel, and you actually notice there that the radiator does have some movement. I actually thought that would be enough to get the shroud in, but as it turns out it wasn't enough. So we've got a few little bits to remove. We've got the 4 grommets, and we've got these 2 locating posts. The 2 locating posts are held in with a pair of 10mm bolts, and that's just a simple case to get those off. I left the rubber boot to the top of the picture next to the yellow sack truck thing. I left those in place as they were proven to be a little bit difficult to get out. But it wasn't the end of the world. I managed to do what I wanted to do. The job I'm actually doing here, it's not for a perfect finish by any means. It's basically just to make it look a little bit more presentable from a distance under the engine bay. It's not in an area that you can see, and I've actually got another one of these panels off the car which I'll probably spend a bit more time getting rid of the rust properly and giving it a real good rub down and getting it nice and smooth and painting that properly. But for the purpose of this exercise I just wanted to get rid of some of this unsightly surface rust and just give it a bit of a spray down with some satin black paint. So I'm just managed to remove one of those grommets, as you can see. So there's one of the sleeves, and the actual grommet itself just literally sort of pops out. So the best way to do it is to attack it from the top side, which I'm not doing at the moment, but I will start to do in a second, hopefully. There I go. And you can then literally just sort of push it through. The area, the hole that they locate into is actually eccentric. So putting them back in is not actually too difficult. So after a bit of sanding, I used some sort of standard sandpaper and some 60 and 80 grit paper just to get the worst off. We start with the spraying. And just basically a bit of satin black, doing the standard 6 inches away from the area that I'm spraying, and the standard spray, stop, spray, stop, spray, stop method to get a smooth as I can finish. Obviously it's not perfectly smooth there, as you can still see some of the old rust underneath, and very likely that will probably start to show through at some point. But as I said before, this is not for a perfect finish, and this was not actually the job that I wanted to do today. It just happened to end up being that because the original job that I wanted to do, getting the fan shroud in, did not go quite to plan. so after that artistic segue, I'll continue with my waffling. Basically, to get the fan shroud in, I thought you would be able to basically get it in a little bit, just enough with the radiator pushed forward, to then get the bottom of the fan shroud over the fan and then get it located in place. Turns out it's not quite as easy as that, and I think what I'm going to have to do is to take the radiator out and put the fan shroud in first, then put the radiator back in. That will probably be the only way I can actually do it. Some people actually sort of tend to leave the fan shrouds out. I could, I suppose, but I'd be perfectly honest with you, I want it in there because it is an original item for the car, and it's how the engine bay would have looked from the factory. Now, the fan shroud I have is a little bit of an unusual shroud. It's a standard shroud for an XJ40 of this era, but look at the date markings. The manufacturing date was January 1986. Now, the XJ40 was not launched until later in the year. I think it was around September 1986, if I recall correctly. Nope, a quick search of the internet has revealed it was actually October the 8th, 1986. That was when it was officially unveiled. This part seems to predate that particular launch, so I don't know if it was a pre-production part or if it was basically a case of stockpiling the parts ready for gearing up for production. Now, what I did do when I was putting the shroud in and out was I did distort some of the fins on the radiator. So what I did was I ran the car fully up to temperature so that the coolant started to go into the radiator, held it at about sort of 1500 to 2000 RPM, and touch wood, there are no leaks from the radiator itself. If it does get to a point where it starts leaking, then that actually gives me a really good excuse to get the radiator out. It's not actually that difficult to do a radiator on one of these. As you could see, it's literally undoing that top panel. There's the two top and bottom hoses which are held in with an 8mm Jubilee clip, and then you've got 4 coolant pipes on either side, I believe, for the automatic transmission and the power steering. And that's pretty much it for today. Bit of an anti-climax because I wanted to do the fan shroud, but not to worry. If you've liked this video, hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe for further upcoming fascinating hobbies. Thanks for watching.